Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, because I like clicking around. We were having a couple musical difficulties on that last one. It's okay. It's a good bridge. It's a good bridge between.
If you say so. If you say that bridge is good, then that's a good bridge.
That's a solid bridge. We'll do a better bridge. We'll do a better bridge between segments coming up next. What If debuted? What If debuted last week?
Last week.
Episode 2 hit today. And
I'm going to make fun of you. Ready?
Yeah.
We could have talked about it last week, but you got kids.
Yes. Yeah, no, there was no way. Well, here's the thing, right? It's an
You
animated
were
show.
sound asleep when that came on.
It's an animated show.
It is an animated show. Yes, it is.
So partly I have a bias against animated shows in general.
Oh.
I do.
What?
Flat out. I don't mean them in the. I just
How
mean
does
them in the
someone
sense
even
that
develop
they are,
a bias towards animated shows?
in terms of level of importance. I think you can skip a cartoon. Generally, you can generally skip a cartoon. Right?
Are you sure you're in this industry? Like, are you sure that this is? Never mind. All right, go ahead. I'm listening.
You can skip a cartoon.
I'm just gonna listen.
Generally, animated shows.
Can't skip a cartoon. Stop it. But I'm gonna listen. I'm just listening to you.
Generally, animated shows are tertiary, but they don't actually impact like the main continuity. It's usually one of those things. It's just like we're just trying to make more money off a property. You know, like everything that happened in the Ghostbusters cartoon, for example, didn't impact Ghostbusters 2 or Ghostbusters 3 or, you know, whatever you want to say, right? Like everything.
That's your gauge. Okay.
Well, yeah, because the Star Wars Extended Universe is another great example of it, right? I mean, in terms of all
No, it's not. It is not.
All the stuff that happened didn't matter once they put something up on screen. Right? Like screen was the gauged content. Or the gauged canon, right?
This you're incorrect about. This is your
Yes, yes, I'm talking about previous. I'm talking about this is where my bias comes from.
Well, how previous are we talking about? Like how far back are you going?
I mean, going back 20 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago even, right? I mean, even 10 years ago, right? Lucasfilm starts Lucas sold the Star Wars properties in like 2013, right? Or 2012, something like that. So I mean, you can go back as far as 10 years ago. What happened on the animated small screen did not impact in any way, shape, or form.
You are alarmingly misinformed about that.
What else? Give me an example.
Well, the Clone Wars was a direct tie-in. Okay. And Genndy Tartakov's Clone Wars was directly tied into to Revenge of the Sith. So that's incorrect. So there are two Clone Wars cartoons, and they were both tied in.
I feel like I didn't need to see those in order to understand episode 3.
That doesn't mean they weren't tied in, though. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You're not just because you didn't give it a level of importance doesn't mean it didn't have that importance. That's why I'm saying
that's one example.
Yeah, maybe not talk about that one.
How many other examples can you think of though?
For the Star Wars?
No, just in general.
Look, I am a huge fan of animation. I'm not going to agree with any of these takes on any of this stuff about how irrelevant the animation is. I'm just letting you know that. Full stop.
Okay.
You know, that's your take on it. That is not a take.
Okay.
You know, that is your take.
Right.
That is not the take.
I was explaining my bias toward animation in terms of
I get you, so you could set it up to make another to make another zinging point. I get it, but you're asking me to comply with your take, and I can't.
Now, what we have is a full-fledged transmedia universe, right? We have a full-fledged. You're absolutely right. Clone Wars is a great example.
Clone Wars and Rebels and Resistance, and now the Bad Batch. I mean,
well, no, now we have but now I think post 20.
I would say yes. You might be correct that the Ewoks cartoon and the Droids cartoon from the 80s,
right,
were not directly tied into.
Well, they rewrote canon anyway. Star Wars rewrote canon completely because they basically said this counts and this doesn't count. So as soon as they sold over. They picked and choose what was canon and what wasn't, right?
But a lot of the ancillary stuff for Star Wars, especially like the Ewok Adventures, the Caravan of Courage, and the Battle for Endor, they're not technically canon.
No, they're not.
So, yeah, coming from that era,
right?
Sure, but I mean,
that's where my bias for animation comes from.
But you're saying in the last 10 years, the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I know the Clone Wars were mid-2000s, but even back then though, they tied into Episode 3, but there is in no way, shape, or form would I have to actually watch any of that stuff to get a.
I know, but you don't have to. All right, yeah, all right.
I'm saying what Marvel's doing now with their animation scares the crap out of me.
Why?
Because now what I'm seeing with this, I thought the first episode was really good. I thought it was kind of a neat experiment. I thought it was animated really well too, by the way, right? I mean, did it maybe not in the context of animation, but beautiful looking to me. I thought the actual art style was beautiful looking. What it did was it proved it's a proof of concept. Marvel doesn't need comics anymore. Like the one saving grace for comics these days in terms of level of interest. I mean, people are hugely interested in the characters, right? Like the mainstream. I don't know. You ask any retailer, and I don't know a single retailer that will sit there and say they've gotten an overwhelmingly increased amount of people coming into their comic book stores because of the movie. He goes, I've asked my retailer. I've asked a couple of them, right, in my area, and they all kind of come with the same answer. Like when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, people were interested. We might have gotten one or two extra kids looking for Guardians of the Galaxy comics. We might have gotten a few people when Walking Dead first came out, and we could steer them to a graphic novel or two. They'd buy it, and then we never see them again, right? They didn't become fans.
Lifelong fans.
Right.
Yeah.
Not in the same way that we were when we were kids, in terms of like you see a Batman comic, you buy it and you go, wow, I want more, and then you kind of like you drink the poison, right? You drink the Kool-Aid. Sorry, not the poison. You drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
the
non-poison drink poison kids.
Poison's your wallet, but other than that,
avoid poison children.
Yeah. So you got to this point now where Disney Plus, and we actually said this at a previous episode too. Disney Plus is doing everything that the comic book universe used to do really effectively, right? Everything in comics right now is so interchangeable. I feel like, and we'll talk about this when we do Spin the Racks next, to where no storylines have any ramifications in the future because at some point they're just going to come in and wipe it out. They did that with all the previous X-Men runs up to Hickman's line, where they essentially said, all that stuff you read.
I stopped reading X-Men when they gave Angel his fluffy wings back.
Right, you've said that.
I was done.
You've been on record as saying that.
Yeah, I was done.
And
it just means that everybody's. I mean, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about people coming and going and leaving, and
right,
and how that's all going to change. So many things. So there's no set, continuity that is safe in the comic books, in current comic books. Yes, I agree with you.
But you sit there and say, well, maybe comic books will have the same kind of mass cultural impact. Because again, characters do. I'm not obviously, these movies are huge. Disney Plus these shows are huge. These characters are huge. But they have now become the definitive place for these characters to exist. And What If is the final, push off the boulder to me, to where, well, shoot, they can have most of the cast of these films and TV shows doing the voices. I thought the Chris Evans sound-alike guy was pretty close, too, to where it sounded like Chris Evans. It wasn't. It was Josh Keaton.
Yeah.
And they can literally now, through Disney Plus...
Get Chris Evans if you can get, like... you haven't seen the second episode, but the cast of characters on the second episode is like, okay, well, how come you couldn't get Chris Evans then?
Right, yeah. I haven't seen the second episode yet, but I've read about it. Yeah, it's obviously, it's Chadwick Boseman's last turn in there. But to me, this is like, okay, animation is what was the saving grace for comic books being relevant anymore? And I'm talking about big two, obviously. I'm not necessarily talking about indie books. You have potential for storylines, right, that they can mine for future movies. It's a relatively inexpensive way to do it. You can take chances, even though they don't, You can take chances because at the end of the day, you can rewrite the continuity, but you might end up getting the next Civil War, the next, Inferno could be something big amazing that we get. You could get the next Infinity War, right, based off of, what the Infinity Gauntlet and things like that. Well, no, now you don't even need that. Now you've got animation. You've got animation to the point where animation is not as expensive. Getting these actors apparently is very easy to do. You've got these TV shows. You've got the TV show algorithms actually doing what the editor used to do, which was, if you liked this, you should also check out this. Or if you want to know more about Ultron and why he's important to you in WandaVision, you want to watch Age of Ultron. Hey, look, there it is. And it's all at your fingertips. To me, I look at this and I say, you know what? Comics, the big two comics, might as well just license out the characters. They might as well just license out the characters at this point, because what they're creating, I don't think is going to have as big an impact on the mass culture that Disney Plus is now going to have in terms of shaping the future of all these Marvel characters. Ask anybody, what's the real history of Captain America? They're not going to be able to tell you the comic book, and they're not going to need to, because there's going to be Captain America cartoons. That's going to be in continuity, in canon, shaping the perception of who Captain America is going to be, who the X-Men are going to be.
As long as the MCU lasts, I'm not a naysayer. I'm not doom scrolling on the MCU. I'm just saying that's not nothing is set in stone. I mean, there's people listening to vinyl records now. I mean, nothing ever really goes away, and we've had animation for 100 years, and it hasn't destroyed comic books. I mean, we're 2 episodes into What If, and you've only seen one of them, and you've already picked out a gravesite and a shovel for yes. comic books for the industry in total. That's
and again, not for the industry, but for the big two, as we know it, having any kind of impact, I think, on the future of the mainstream. I think we are watching the future of the mainstream. Now there might be digital comics that you read through Disney Plus. That might be the future, right? I mean, you might go to Disney Plus with your Disney Plus subscription and get your Marvel Unlimited, tied into it somehow, or you might add it on as part of it.
Yeah.
And that might be a different mechanism to it.
I'm sort of hoping that comic books kind of grow into a hybrid of what they're doing now with motion comics. But I mean, they refine the process a little more to make it its own experience, but it is unique to comics.
Right.
It is a unique, moving experience for comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get rid of print, if we get rid of the comic book retailers or whatever, you could still subscribe to these things, sort of like a podcast.
Right.
And you'll get a monthly comic book, pretty much the same process. Same, just a completely different delivery system.
Yeah,
where it's getting that information out.
But that's the thing. I'm open to the different delivery systems. I'm not abhorrent to change.
Comic books has to evolve a little bit. I mean, that format has been stagnant.
Yeah,
and I can't express this more. I'm not down on comic books at all. I just think that it could use some innovation, and you're right. I think the reason it could be in jeopardy is because they haven't innovated anything. What 40 years, 50? What's the last innovation in comic books that we got?
You get die cut covers, you get holograms, you get
Mylars, things like that. Like these ways to snazz it up, but they haven't altered the format too much. Now look, the format is good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Sure.
But obviously, it is becoming. It's like it's like those 2 kids in Back to the Future Part 2. It's like, what? You got to use your hands when they were playing the video games. It's like new people are not to be expected to respect and appreciate the old ways of anything. They're not expected to hold up tradition. They're expected to be excited about whatever excites them.
Right. If
comic books aren't exciting, and What If, or other animated shows on Disney Plus,
mm-hmm.
Are exciting, that just makes the market.
That's what it comes down to. And you might sit there and say it is a big take. I get it. I get it. Like comics are dead. No, there has been talk, rumors, and these are rumors. Look, this is just rumors and speculation, right? And I'm not confirming them, and I'm not trying to give them credence. However, it's where there's smoke, there's fire, and also the idea of it is like, that's actually possible. So if it's not happening now, it could be happening later. There was talk that IDW was going to produce DC Comics. Like literally, they were going to produce DC Comics.
Yeah, there's a lot of indicators that the industry is coming to pieces. That have nothing to do with the animation.
No, I mean,
I'm not even naysaying your concerns about it. I'm just saying there's way more to it than just this cartoon. I think Kevin Feige or whoever's behind it, whoever he's listening to, whatever his creative team is, I think they are scrambling to come up with new ways to innovate. Kevin Feige is responsive to them, or receptive to all these changes. He's not, he's a traditionalist in the sense of where all these characters and all this continuity came from, but he's not a traditionalist in how he's going to deliver them to the mainstream public. So he's got the money, the backing, and the vision to put a lot of this stuff into motion that we've had at our disposal for the last 30 years, and nobody's really done anything with it. Now, granted, he's someone handed him the keys to a kingdom because he's got Disney. He's got his own dedicated channel.
Right.
He's got a lot of success track record, which means that it gives him a lot of corporate leeway to be able to do whatever he wants to do, and he's got tons of money.
Right.
So there's IDW, a lot of these other companies that may have had ideas, and I'm not mentioning them because you mentioned them. I'm just saying in general, all these other companies that may have had ideas could not execute them because they didn't have the resources and they didn't have the they didn't have the bandwidth to be able to do it. So, but that doesn't mean that these ideas haven't been floating out there for a long time. It's the same as the pandemic has the day and date release, movies to watch at home, which they've been talking about for 20 years.
Right.
But no one was going to pull the trigger on it because there was a ton of money to be lost. So necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
Because nobody could go out, they had to find a different way to do it. It's kind of the same with this. Look, I did 10 years of great movie cinema. I've proven that comic books can work as cinema.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming up on my reboot, basically, on whether or not I'm going to be able to make the Infinity Saga again. Maybe I'm going to be able to do part 2. So instead of just going, I'm just going to make some more great movies, he's like, no, I'm going to diversify all this. I'm going to make it, and I'm going to make it all must-see watching if you want to be able to know where you are in these.
Yep.
It's brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not like this is new.
No.
He's the first person to come along. He's a pharaoh. Yep. He's the first person to come along with the money, the clout, the vision, and the resources to be able to do it. So maybe if comic books dies, that's just because.
And again, I mean, I don't mean it as the medium because again, I think Kickstarter is the notion of comic
you mean
books.
The industry.
Like the industry itself.
As an industry, and yeah.
Is thriving. I mean, I think thanks to Kickstarter and thanks to the actual medium of comic books. No, I'm talking about the continuity of the big two. Well, maybe not right now. Maybe just the big one, and maybe DC will eventually figure it out. I guess my point would be to you: what do you think is driving the stories for DC? It's not the movies to me. It's the comics, right? Like things that are happening in the comics.
Yeah, it's gotta be this. Yeah.
But I think what's driving the characters in Marvel is now the movies and the TV shows, and I think it's completely.
So who do you think is in better shape? Do you think Marvel's in better shape than DC? If DC is still the master of their own ship, in continuity, then they might be in better shape than Marvel, even though Marvel is the more successful of the two at the moment.
Right. Like I think DC needs DC to keep making comics. In order to come up with something.
But see, we're all rooting for the DCEU to become something.
I know.
And if that happens, that theoretically will kill the comic books.
I know.
So, yeah, that's a complicated conversation, I guess.
That's the kind of stuff we bring to the table here. What do you guys think? Actually, before we go to break, what did you think of the first episode? Or you can go the first two if you want. I don't, again, I haven't seen the second one, but that's okay.
I think they're brilliantly done pieces of animation, and I've always liked What If. I've never read What If steadily, like week after week, because Marvel was, at the time when we were growing up, Marvel was so vast that no one read everything in the Marvel universe. No,
you actually had to pay for everything too. It was terrible.
Yes. So, you would get a What If, something from the other end of the Marvel spectrum that, wouldn't appeal to you because you wouldn't understand the nuances they were changing. But I used to read What If a lot, and I've watched all of the MCU, so I'm sure all the What Ifs that they're going to do are going to be relevant to what we've seen. I think they're brilliant. I think the art is beautiful. What I've heard is that they are very much inspired by the J.C. Lydecker art from the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Who was an inspiration to Norman Rockwell himself. So, I mean, it's beautiful. Like the latest episode with which everybody knows is T'Challa. What if T'Challa was Star-Lord?
Yep.
It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. It's kind of heartbreaking because it's Chadwick Boseman's last, and it looks great. Now, whether or not are they heavy? Are they like these deep introspective, takes on? Not really. It's great animation. If you like animation, it's great animation. Unfortunately, they're forcing you to watch them because they're relevant.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're a waste of your time. I think they're really well done. The time will tell as to whether or not the series is brilliant.
I had I had nitpicky issues with like the first episode where the whole, where Jeffrey Wright that's where it changes, and I'm like, because she was in the room, Yeah,
but if the first Avenger, they kicked her out of the room.
No, I get that they kicked her out of the room. But she didn't stop him from blowing stuff up. So that was like one of those like head scratches where I have to go back and actually watch the first Avenger now to see exactly, because in my mind I'm like, but it's like if she had prevented the explosion or in some way altered it, so that why did Steve Rogers feel he had to get out of the chair?
But he said the most minute or minor things that changed.
I know. But it was like little things like that, and then giving Steve Rogers the Iron Man suit, I thought was like, all right, that was. Like that caused the Iron Man suit to be built. I don't know. That was a little. It's animation. Okay. You could take chances. That's my whole point. You could take chances. You can make a story that isn't going to necessarily, to me, fire on all cylinders and still produce a product that's highly enjoyable and is setting the continuity for things to come. That was exactly the point. Like exactly what ran through my head as I'm watching this.
All right. Okay.
It's trouble. It's trouble for the big two. It's trouble for the big.
Maybe so, but I mean, like if the big two can't withstand it, they're not innovating to be able to withstand it, or not taking advantage of it to be able to withstand the tidal wave. Then that maybe that boat wasn't so sturdy after all.
The only constant in life is change.
Oh. Boy, you
always yell when I make jokes. I actually made
crack open a fortune cookie. What the heck, man?
I made a poignant statement to segue us into our next thing. What did you guys think? They're comment on the Facebook feed. Comment in the YouTube feed. We will respond to you when we come back. More comic book news when we go spinning the racks.